Boruto's body collapses and the ground of Konoha is drenched in blood. He was their absolute hope, but the light turned into pitch-black darkness. Code smirks because the hero lost. The karma failed and death arrived way too soon. You blink and everything crumbles. Rewind the tape 20 minutes. The battle wasn't supposed to end like this. Mitsuki watches it all and feels the sheer despair. His son is being devoured. He needs a miracle right now. You know that Mitsuki's loyalty always hid a dark secret, and now things are spinning out of control. Orochimaru implanted a lethal genetic lock in the boy's body because his true power was immeasurable. Code steps up to deliver the final blow to Boruto, and then Mitsuki makes an unforgivable decision. He knows that if he breaks his master's seal, he will lose his own humanity forever, but he'd rather be a monster than live in a world without his son. The forest around them begins to wither away as an ancient, corrupted energy bleeds out of Mitsuki's body. White snakes erupt from the ground and tear into the young ninja's own flesh. He screams, and the sound isn't human because the Ryuchi Cave demands a blood sacrifice. Blood, you realize this isn't the sage mode we know, but a primordial curse. The air grows heavy and even Code takes a step back because the stench of death floods the battlefield. Code tries to use his claw marks to escape, but the space around them begins to warp and shatter. White scales cover Mitsuki's face, and his golden eyes gleam with an uncontrollable, divine fury. He is no longer a lab experiment because the natural chakra of the earth fuses with his soul in a dark pact. You feel the pressure skyrocket and rocks float as the real terror breaks free. The sun must be protected, and the price is already being paid. Here comes the plot twist you didn't see coming because Orochimaru's seal wasn't meant to protect the world from Mitsuki. The truth is, the seal protected Mitsuki from being absorbed by the will of the original White Snake. The boy's mind begins to splinter, and his memories with Boruto turn to dust. He raises his head and the aura around him takes the shape of a massive, terrifying celestial dragon. Code realizes he messed with the wrong creature, and absolute fear grips the villain's eyes. The dragon roars and the shockwave tears through the trees and brutally obliterates the ground. Mitsuki charges and his speed shatters the sound barrier. Because he no longer has physical limits, he grabs Code by the throat and the impact slams an insane crater into the dirt. You're glued to the screen because the villain who wiped out entire villages now looks like a helpless bug. The promise to protect Boruto turned into an obsession, and the dragon demands the total annihilation of the enemy. I guarantee you this display of power is going to escalate into something way worse in the next few seconds. Mitsuki's chakra burns like white fire and slowly melts Code's skin away. The villain shrieks and tries to unleash the Ten Tails power, but the pure senjutsu completely neutralizes any foul energy. Victory seems locked in, but you know that such a massive power always demands a shattering price. Mitsuki's scaled body begins to crack, and dark blood leaks through the gaps of his natural armor. Boruto opens his eyes with agony and catches sight of the monstrous creature saving his life. He tries to scream his friend's name, but his voice fails. Because he understands the sheer gravity of the sacrifice, Mitsuki looks back for a split second, and a tragic smile breaks across the dragon's monstrous face. He turns to Code and readies a final strike that will wipe out the enemy's existence along with his own. The air stops moving and a blinding white light swallows everything around them. The silent explosion obliterates the landscape and leaves an absolute vacuum on the Konoha battlefield. As the smoke begins to clear, you spot Code's silhouette collapsed and completely destroyed. But the ultimate question burns in your mind because Mitsuki's body has completely vanished from the face of the earth. You move closer to see what's left on the ground and find only an ancient scroll from Orochimaru glowing amidst the ashes. Whatever is inside that scroll will change Boruto's destiny forever. The scroll pulses on the shattered ground and Boruto reaches out a trembling hand to touch it. The smoke still burns his eyes, but curiosity overrides the deep pain. The seal tears open on its own and a sickly green light rips through the Konoha sky. You hold your breath because the chakra didn't vanish but instead evolved into something bizarre. Code coughs up black blood and starts laughing hysterically in the middle of the wreckage. The villain's destroyed body begins to regenerate in a gruesome way because the white karma rejects death. The corrupt energy warps Code's flesh, and he takes on a bestial, purely chaotic form. Boruto tries to draw his sword, but his legs give out, and he drops to his knees. Then the green light from the scroll materializes in front of the hero like a solid barrier. A translucent, scaled figure rises from the ashes, and the air freezes instantly. Mitsuki didn't die in the explosion, but he lost his physical body forever. Orochimaru's scroll acted as a spiritual anchor and locked his soul to the earthly plane. Now he is an ethereal dragon, made of pure sage chakra and unbreakable will. The translucent ghost hovers and the pressure crushes the soil just by being there. Code charges with blind rage, but the creature blocks the attack with a single finger of energy. The speed of the battle reaches a level that human eyes simply cannot follow. Code fires lethal beams and the spiritual creature dodges with a terrifying calmness. You feel the tension rise because the dragon doesn't attack and just watches the enemy's despair. Mitsuki's ghost raises his left hand and the space around Code begins to collapse. Silent, white flames erupt from the ground and swallow the villain without mercy. These flames don't burn the physical body but disintegrate spiritual energy and raw chakra. Code screams in agony because his essence is being ripped away. Piece by piece, he tries to use his claw mark to escape, but the mystical dragon nullifies any space-time ninjutsu. The ghost lunges forward and drives a direct punch straight through the monster's chest. You shiver watching absolute power crush the threat with ease. Boruto watches everything unfold as tears stream down his face covered in dust and blood. He feels the familiar warmth of Mitsuki's soul and realizes the massive sacrifice that was made. The dragon turns its translucent face and sends a direct telepathic message into Boruto's mind. Mitsuki's voice echoes cold and distant warning that this spiritual form only has a few minutes left to live. The sage chakra is burning up his very soul and soon, absolutely nothing will remain. Code's fury boils over and he summons the residual power of the 10 tails for one final strike. The sky goes dark and a devastating red sphere of energy forms right above the shattered village. The scale of the attack is colossal and threatens to vaporize the entire land of fire in seconds. Mitsuki doesn't flinch and his spiritual body begins to glow with the intensity of 1,000 suns. He will throw all the time he has left into a single lethal move. The celestial dragon coils around the red sphere and tries to crush the attack with its sheer weight. The sound of the collision shatters windows miles away and the earth shakes violently. Code pours all his hatred into the technique, and Mitsuki's ghost begins to flicker like a weak light. You realize the ethereal energy is losing stability because the output is way too insane. The spiritual barrier gives way by a millimeter, and panic takes over the scene. Boruto knows he can't just stand by and forces his battered body to stand up from the ground. The blue karma spreads across the boy's arm and he channels every last drop of his vital energy. He won't let his friend die alone, so he runs straight toward the epicenter of the collision. The Jougan blinks in Boruto's right eye and he sees the exact flow of chakra in the enemy's attack. He leaps and dives into the crossfire without a second thought. Mitsuki's ghost roars and the spiritual aura goes into overdrive combustion. The resonance of the sage chakra scorches the air, and Code's red sphere begins to crack right in the middle of the sky. The villain goes into absolute panic because his ultimate attack is being shoved right back at him. The dust kicks up like a hurricane and hides both warriors inside a dome of pure destruction. You hear nothing but the sound of tearing flesh and energy exploding inside the storm. The wind clears the smoke and reveals Code lying on the ground with his arms completely severed. The villain's bestial form regresses and he pukes a bizarre amount of dark, corrosive blood. The ethereal dragon hovers over him with an unyielding, freezing stare. Mitsuki shows no mercy, because Boruto's safety demands the total extermination of the threat. The translucent monster opens its jaws and readies a beam of concentrated light for the final judgment. Victory seems guaranteed, but Code's acidic blood spreads through the ruins and triggers a hidden seal underground. The soil splits open and black chains shoot out from the earth to impale the ethereal dragon's body. Mitsuki lets out a surreal scream of pain and his energy begins to be brutally drained away. Boruto tries to run to help, but the chains wrap around his legs and slam him hard to the ground. The earth opens completely and reveals a hooded figure emerging from the shadows with the Rinnegan eyes gleaming in the dark. The black chains tighten around Boruto's flesh and drag him down into the darkness of the abyss. The hooded figure floats over the chasm, and the Rinnegan eyes glow with an ancient hunger. You recognize the macabre silhouette and realize the danger has scaled to an immeasurable level. It's the divine tree clone based on Madara Uchiha, who awakened ahead of schedule deep beneath the soil. Code smirks armless because he knows the true ninja horror has just arrived. Mitsuki's ethereal dragon roars against the chains, but the Rinnegan's energy siphons the senjutsu away rapidly. The chakra scales begin to fade out, and the hero's transparency increases alarmingly. He is being eaten alive by the root of the divine tree which feeds on the souls of warriors. Boruto activates his Jougan and tries to slash the bonds with a lightning blade, but the black metal absorbs the attack. You watch the protagonist's despair as he is pinned down with zero chance of defense. The Madara clone extends its hand and the ground of Konoha shakes with the summoning of wooden statues. The monuments crush the remaining houses and trap the battlefield inside a perfect vegetative prison. The creature doesn't say a single word, but its intention is purely the extermination of the human race. It walks toward Mitsuki and prepares to extract the core of the Ryuchi Cave directly from his soul. If the clone gets this energy, the whole planet will dry up in minutes. Boruto bites his own lips until they bleed and calls upon the hidden power deep within his genetics. The blue karma resonates with the dragon's energy and shorts out the black chains. He manages to free one of his arms and charges at the Madara clone with a massive Rasengan. The impact creates a brutal shockwave, but the villain doesn't even budge from his spot. The clone absorbs the chakra sphere with his palm and kicks Boruto away. The young Uchiha crashes near the debris and watches the worst possible scenario play out right in front of him. The clone drives an emaciated hand into the translucent dragon's chest and rips out Mitsuki's life essence. The hero screams and the sound echoes like a thunderclap of agony tearing through the village skies. The green energy from Orochimaru's scroll starts to flicker until it's almost extinct. You feel the weight of the tragedy because his best friend's soul is about to be wiped out. Mitsuki looks at Boruto with the final scraps of consciousness and takes an extremely desperate step. He knows his spiritual form won't survive another second of torture or draining, so he detonates the rest of his Sage Chakra from the inside out to break the Rinnegan's hold. The blast blows the clone backward and shatters the black chains, pinning the protagonist down. The celestial dragon dissolves into glowing dust, and silence takes over the area. Boruto rushes through the smoke and scoops up Orochimaru's scroll, which fell onto the cracked ground. The paper is scorched, and Mitsuki's presence inside feels as thin as a single thread. But the Madara clone stands right back up without a single scratch, and the monster's patience has officially run out. He weaves his hands and unleashes the wood dragon jutsu to bury Boruto for good. The hero dodges the massive branches, but he is exhausted and out of combat options. Code takes advantage of the distraction to crawl to the edge of the chasm and try to gather his hidden strength. But the Madara clone doesn't want allies and crushes Code's head in a single blink. The Divine Tree's cruelty shocks Boruto and proves there's no room for negotiation or a truce. The villain absorbs Code's remains, and the Rinnegan's power doubles in size in an instant. The air becomes so thick that Boruto can barely breathe or focus his vision. The protagonist holds the scroll tight against his chest and apologizes to his friend for not being strong enough. Tears mix with sweat and blood dripping down the hilt of his worn-out sword. The Madara clone charges like a black lightning bolt, and the impact sends Boruto's katana flying into the air. The hero closes his eyes expecting the fatal blow that will tear his heart out of his chest, but something bizarre happens at the very last millisecond, and time seems to freeze. Orochimaru's scroll spontaneously combusts and melts directly into the blade of the sword hovering in midair. Boruto's katana glows with a purple and gold color never before seen in the ninja world. The weapon falls and stabs into the ground right between the hero and the villain, emitting a pulsing life of its own. The Madara clone steps back 3 paces because the sword begins to float all by itself in the middle of the battlefield. The metal vibrates and Mitsuki's voice echoes from inside the blade with a terrifying and reborn tone. The sword hovers and Mitsuki's voice echoes through the blade announcing that Orochimaru's plan is complete. The scroll wasn't a prison but a catalyst to fuse his soul with the steel. Boruto grabs the hilt of the weapon and golden electricity instantly surges through his veins. You feel the energy shift because the two friends are now a single indestructible being in battle. The Madara clone senses the threat and lunges forward with the Rinnegan glowing in pure hatred. The hero swings the blade and a slash of purified chakra severs the villain's wooden arms. Boruto's speed hits its peak and he appears behind the clone. Before the sound can even travel, the sentient sword guides the protagonist's movements and blocks every counterattack with divine perfection. The clone tries to use the absorption path, but the mystical steel cuts right through the Rinnegan's own energy. You're glued to the screen watching the divine tree creature back away, terrified for the first time. The villain pulls his body back together and summons a meteor storm to crush the village. Boruto looks up at the sky and points the golden katana toward the massive flaming rocks. He channels the Rasengan through the edge of the sword and fires a blast of wind that disintegrates the meteors. Cosmic dust rains down and the hero charges through the fire with focused eyes. The fate of Konoha and the entire ninja world will be decided right now with this strike. The Madara clone tries to create an absolute barrier of gravity, but Mitsuki's blade shatters the laws of physics. Boruto tears through the defense and stabs the sword straight into the wooden monster's heart with pure fury. The celestial dragon's energy leaks from the weapon and burns the clone's roots from the inside out. The villain shrieks in agony as his body turns into white ash and vanishes into the wind. Peace finally returns to the battlefield, and silence dominates the horizon. The sword loses its golden glow, and Mitsuki's voice says goodbye to Boruto with a calm whisper. The hero sheathes his weapon, knowing his best friend will always be with him in every battle. The threat of the divine tree is extinct, and Konoha is saved because of the White Snake's supreme sacrifice. Boruto walks to the top of the Hokage monument and vows to protect the future with his life. The story wraps up with no loose ends, and the ninja hero won his greatest war. If you enjoyed this epic journey, drop a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next video. There's another insane fanfic waiting for you on the end screen, so click right there and see you next time.